Tina, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me. I thought it would be excellent having you on, especially as we've worked together, and I wanted to get your take on a couple of things, especially relating to client and consultant dynamics. So I want to get into
Mm-hmm.
your background in SEO. I see you have a front end development background, so I want to touch on that as well.
Yes.
And then we'll go
Yes. Yes.
into client and consultant dynamics. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
ask you a few tips for client side SEOs around hiring a consultant. So, if that all sounds good with you,
Yeah.
as I like to
Perfect.
do with all my guests, I like to ask them how they got started in SEO. So, with that said, how did you venture into becoming an SEO and an SEO?
Yeah. So, actually, I went to university in Berlin and I'm still based in Berlin. And I'm actually a trained anthropologist. So, nothing to do with SEO or websites at all.
Mm,
But as it is, like when you're in the social sciences, it's not really clear what career path you're gonna take after graduating. And so when I graduated university, I thought about what I wanted to do, and then it was really like a bit of a coincidence that I went into SEO because I had been like active during my university years in activism, and I'd noticed that in Germany at the time, um, SEO was like an active strategy of a lot of mostly like anti-choice groups, and they used SEO to get high in the rankings and then spread misinformation. And I just
mm,
noticed that, and then I was like, huh, like what is that? How does that work? Like why? Like how do search engines work? And then I just read a little bit about it, was really interested in it, and then I was applying for jobs, and then I found this internship. It was a 6 month paid internship for SEO manager at an e-commerce company.
mm.
And I was really lucky because I mean you might know that SEO is a very like sought after skill. Like there's not
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of like people that do it well. So this company had decided, the SEO manager that they had decided that instead of you know trying to hire another SEO manager, they would first do the 6 month internship, train somebody, and then hire me out of the internship, and that's what
Right.
I did then. So I got the internship. In the interview, it was a bit funny because he asked me like, okay, what is SEO, and I just like repeated something that I had read like in preparation for the interview. Just like I was like, oh yeah, it's about the structure of the website and like keywords and stuff. And yeah, and I got the internship, and I was super super lucky because that SEO manager, Alexander Stürmer is his name. He was just the best boss. Like he really mentored me, really trained me in everything. So
Mm,
yeah, that's how I got started in SEO, and I loved it.
awesome. It's always nice to hear that an SEO has a great mentor that they started off with. That's
Yeah,
beautiful to hear. Would you say you have
yeah.
a favorite area of SEO? Is it tech, on page, content, analytics?
Yeah, so it's definitely the technical SEO.
Right.
I just love auditing websites, getting really like into the nitty gritty of like what's like behind the scenes. And so I do audits, and yeah, so that's actually also because I was always super interested in the technical side
Mm,
that I started to learn more about web development and got more into it. And now actually like web development, like creating websites for clients, small companies, nonprofits, is like kind of my second. Um, I don't know. I'm a freelancer,
second
so I need
career.
to do two things. Yeah, my second career, right? Like it's SEO, and then it's also web development. Yeah.
That's awesome. As someone who's experienced as a front end developer, as I've seen from your LinkedIn, how would you say is the best way, right, for SEOs to communicate with developers?
Oh,
It's always an
um,
interesting question, and as you experience
yeah,
with
yeah,
both, I
yeah.
thought you'd be the best person to ask this to.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I have like both sides. And so yeah, I don't know. I just like when I work for bigger companies that have like a development team. Um, I sometimes feel like there can be this like friction between SEO and the
Mm-hmm.
development team because as an SEO, I'm usually the one who like makes requests or brings up problems that are not often not like that are not easy fixes sometimes when
Mm-hmm.
comes to like it's about the architecture of a website and stuff like that. And yeah, so I would say focusing on the common goal, like trying to use each other's language as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and not like kind of trying to remember that even though this person is like comes from a different perspective, they are experts in their field, and there's
Right.
not like this, like we're like trying to talk on equal footing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important. Just because there's maybe in the last deploy, the development team implemented something that has like really negative effects for SEO and you're like freaking out.
Yeah.
I think it's like important to go to them and be like, hey, this is a cool new feature that you did, like still, and not like going to them as like, oh my god, what did you do? Like just like kind of remember that like we're all like working towards the same goal ideally.
Yeah, I've seen at a number of client side brands that SEOs and developers, they are, well, SEOs, I would say, tends to be very, they point fingers at issues that's
Yeah,
caused by other departments, especially the
yeah,
dev department. So, for example,
yeah,
in an audit, they'll say, SEOs can be quite negative at times.
yeah,
So in a tech audit, they'll say this is wrong, all of this is wrong, etc., 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 and it's
yeah,
the dev department's fault, so they need to spend time fixing it, and it just
yeah,
creates friction
yeah,
between the two departments, and this is
yeah,
departments within the same company. Imagine what it's like with when you have a brand, right, that has an SEO agency, a web dev agency. And sometimes they might have the SEO might have a development arm within their agency, and
mm-hmm,
vice versa for the dev agency. So it becomes very, very messy. And I think the communication between the
yeah,
two really needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work the way historically SEOs and content creators, or copywriters, I should say, used to have friction. It's not so much these
yeah,
days, but these days it's more
yeah.
with the dev and the SEO person. Do you tend to see that, even if you don't experience it personally yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I do see that. And I think I see that especially when I am like onboarded to a project pretty late. That happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That first they start like thinking about, oh, we need this website, or
Mm-hmm.
we want to do this and that, and then SEO is something that comes up later, and then like, oh, and then we should also do some SEO, and then but then often like the concept and the website structure is already done, and I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
actually, we need to take a step back, and then it's really hard,
Yeah.
then, it's really hard to be in that position. And so whenever I'm onboarded so late in the project, then there's this friction. And so, but then when I'm like, coming into a project at the early stages, then I find like, oh, cool, like now we can think about the website together. I can let the developer know beforehand, before they invest all that time and energy into things. Like I can know, let them know, okay, these are the things that I need. And so that is a good way, I think, to reduce friction. And then also sometimes I feel like, SEO has changed so much. It's actually, I'm now maybe like back in the day, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. It really, like, I can imagine how SEO people would be, like, there would be much more friction with the content team, because it would be much more about like keywords and exact match keywords and stuff like that. But all of this stuff, like, it's not, like, it has evolved so much. That's not what SEO is about anymore. But in my experience, a lot of people don't quite know that. So I still see like clients who hire me and they think that I will, I don't know, just add a few keywords here and there, and that would be the optimization, and then when I talk about content, like search intent, then there's a little bit of confusion sometimes, and so but also this is an opportunity. Like, it's an opportunity to say, hey, I'm actually not this keyword counter that you thought I was. We actually, like, with the content team, we want exactly the same thing, and so we I think we have come a lot closer together. So yeah,
I think one of the issues with dynamics is that sometimes you have hiring managers who don't know what they don't know about SEO. So it's like an unknown, as people say. And because of that, they tend to almost like guess where SEO should come in. And a lot of the times is they imagine SEO being something that's carried out just before the launch of a site, for example. So they think, okay, SEO, we bring in SEO at this point and then we launch the site. And they don't think of, okay, SEO would need to be, a lot of the things that's been carried out would need to be iterated because of SEO. So by the time SEO comes in, it's way too late. And then they have to make a decision whether to make changes or to go ahead and launch or do a soft launch and then fix things afterwards, which is never as smooth as it should be.
No.
What is typically, from the client's point of view, let's say a small to medium business, what do you think typically leads a client to seek out a consultant in the first place, an SEO consultant?
Yeah. So, so what I see a lot is like two cases. Like, first, like maybe like entrepreneurs who are just like starting their business, and they know that SEO is important and they want to get it right first. So that's like one type of client that I get. But then, and which I think is more often, is that clients come to me a bit later, maybe like after a couple of years, and they already have their website and everything's kind of like evolved over time, and they haven't really thought about SEO, or they had like not enough of an understanding of SEO to do it right. And then they look at, maybe they've connected their website to Search Console, and they see, it's not really developing. Like, I know I need to reach more clients, I need to grow my business, but it's not really working. So what do I do now? And so that's the other, kind of client group that I have. And there are two different challenges. I don't have a preference. I think like what my preferred client is somebody who has an interest in actually understanding what SEO is about. Like, what I don't like is when my client comes to me and says like, SEO is not working, I don't want to know, like, just take care of it, like, do your magic and don't bother me with it. Like, that's not what I like, because I think it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. Like, they need to have an understanding And so, for example, I always do with all of my clients, I always do some sort of training with them to help them understand the fundamentals so that they understand what I do and why I do it. And clients who are like really interested in that, they are my favorite type of clients, like clients who are open and not like married to what like specific things like with their website. They used to do things always like that, and now they keep fighting me when I say maybe we should change some of things, and like somebody who's like curious to know, wants to understand, and is maybe also open to changes is my favorite client.
Yeah, I find brands, they always ask for like for SEOs to prove themselves. SEOs are constantly
Yeah.
creating
Oh
either
yeah.
case studies, showing case studies, or proving why a client needs to spend their time
Yeah.
doing certain things, making certain adjustments. How often would you say a client has a decent level of understanding of SEO and is able to assist SEO in implementation, whether it's speaking with the different departments or having different departments brought into a project at the right time, i.e., the very beginning?
How often? I would say, unfortunately, that it's the minority. Um, I think it's more often that I have to do a lot of explaining and trying to find common ground and try to see how I can fit into the project.
Right.
Um, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's still the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say a tech audit. When you deliver a tech audit,
Mm-hmm.
what do you ideally expect the clients to do? So you've created a tech audit, you've delivered it to them. From that point,
Mm-hmm.
what would you suggest the brand should do?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Uh, yeah, I've definitely learned a lot about how to deliver my results to clients over the years. So, what I did in the beginning is I would do my analysis. I would write up a report, send that report, maybe have a phone call to explain it, and then kind of expect the client to just like implement all the concrete prioritized measures that I had defined.
Yeah.
But then what I would see often, like with that approach, that it doesn't, if it doesn't fit into the client's workflow, then they won't implement it. If it's like an intimidating report and a list of all of the things, it just sounds like a lot of work, and it's not. I don't know. It's just that approach. I've abandoned that approach a little bit.
Yeah.
So what I do now is I try to start every audit with like a question or like a problem statement. Like, this is where we currently are, and this is specifically what we want. Like, we want to improve our rankings for this target group or something like that. And that helps like get the client on board because they see like more the benefit. And
Right.
then I break it up into different sections, like, okay, so the backlink audit is one, then the content audit is one, like going into the analytics is one part, and then instead of delivering like spreadsheet or a PDF report, I usually do presentations, and then I have a meeting with the client. I go through my presentation, I let them ask follow-up questions, and I found that that's a better approach because then clients are much more receptive and it's not that intimidating. And also often I just ask, like I try to be really flexible in how I deliver results because, so for example, one developer, I just asked him, I said like, hey, I did an analysis, I found some things, how do you want me to give my results to you? Like, do you want to have a meeting? Do you want to have a report? Do you want to have whatever? And he said like, hey, yeah, how about you send me everything in a spreadsheet, and then I can just tick everything off, and we can, and then I made a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think flexibility is really important.
Now, you mentioned results there. It's always an interesting thing when SEO consultants talk about results and clients talk about results, because they're like two different things, right? Consultants will see results as the deliverables, let's say,
Yeah.
whereas the stakeholder will see improvement in traffic as the result. How do you
True, yeah.
establish with the clients that these are the results or the milestones, and these will be, let's say, the next steps once we hit these results? How do you define the results to clients so that you're all on the same page?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I think that like a lot of the times, the clients I work with are like smaller companies and nonprofit organizations, and they don't have a budget to like hire me on an ongoing basis, that I do like oversee the SEO, like the implementation and stuff like that. And they are really interested in being able to do all these things themselves. And so I think in that setup, it's quite clear that that my deliverables are recommendations, and then I work with them that they're in the best position to implement it. And then yeah, so that it's like with the clients that I work with, it's like quite clear that I deliver the recommendations. And I always say that, like, I think it's not professional to promise results, like number one ranking for, like, like that's not professional to promise that. But yeah.
See, this goes to like brands not necessarily knowing the reality of SEO, because they might, everyone's SEO is very different, right? Whether you're client side, agency side, consultants, and then brand SEO is a completely different thing, and then the vertical that you're in is also a very different thing. So it changes. It's widely, I should say, widely different person to person, right? Situation to situation. And I find that a lot of brands, they tend to stick with, or they tend to get advice from industry standard, best standards within the industry. And that's fine if you're taking that as a piece of information, but I find that brands tend to use that as the end all be all, and they use that as the gold standard. What I think brands should also consider is their SEO, as in what state their business is in, what state their SEO is in, and how they need to make, what progress they need to make, and how they need to make the progress. Do you find that this is the case as well? You have a lot of clients, or you'll have a stakeholder who has this expectation in mind, which is the industry standard, but their specific SEO is far from industry standard.
Yeah, so I agree. It's I would actually love if I could have more clients where I can, like, I have some clients where I do work on an ongoing basis, and that's just like amazing, because then I can also see the results of my recommendations. I can see the implementation. There can be a back and forth. That's like really great. I love that. And I wish that I could have it a bit more, instead of only doing the audits and then delivering the recommendations, because what I also need people to understand is, and I don't know if a lot of people understand this, but SEO is very complicated. I mean, as you know, and it actually needs, like, I have years of experience with it, and that's my expertise, and I can't, even if I do a lot of training with like the marketing manager of a company, I can't give that person that same expertise, so that when that person is then confronted with, our most important landing page had a drop in rankings. Like, what do we do? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, that's not an expectation. Like, if you're the boss of a company and you think like, oh, I'm going to get an SEO consultant to do like an audit and then maybe some training for my marketing manager and then everything will just go from there. That's just not a realistic expectation, I think.
In terms of education, or let's say awareness of SEO, I always say everyone who has a touch point with the website needs to have a certain level of awareness of SEO to know how what they do impacts SEO. So the similar thing for a copywriter is the same case for a web developer, for example. What level of SEO would you say one needs to have without them having to be an SEO who does SEO full time?
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say everybody should have like a basic understanding of how SEO works and what areas of SEO there are. And then maybe actually one of the agencies that I regularly work for, we have like a list of like things that can have a big impact on SEO. And that whenever we're in a client meeting, we should watch out for these. Like, so it's things like changing the main navigation, or like changing the links in the footer, or like redirecting stuff, or changing URLs or stuff like that. And it would be, I think, good if everybody who has touch points with the website knew what those like critical areas are, that like, I think like we're changing the navigation, I should check with the SEO about that. Like, just like, you don't have to be like an expert in like internal linking to know when this topic comes up, there's some SEO connected to it.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's move on to a brand hiring an SEO consultant. As I mentioned earlier, SEO is almost like not almost, it is an unknown for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What should a stakeholder consider before hiring an SEO consultant? Just a broad overview.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's really helpful to have a concrete goal, because sometimes potential clients come to me and they just say, we want to do SEO, but it's really helpful when they come to me and they're already prepared a little bit, and they say, okay, we have this target group. There are some keywords where our competitors are better than us, like something where I know, okay, like what's the context for my work? And then also have an understanding of like how much, like what your resources are that you can dedicate to the process. Like, does your marketing manager have the resources to really like work with me? How much, what's your budget for implementation, and like all these things. I think that's really helpful when they have that, and then we can work on a really good solution for them.
Yeah. From an experience point of view, is there a certain level of experience that a stakeholder should be considering? So is it 3 years plus, or 5 years, or even just 1 year into the industry?
Oh, so for the SEO consultant to have that experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think it really depends on like what I would probably ask is like what type of experience, like what type of companies has that person worked for? If you've been a full-time SEO manager in an e-commerce company for 1 year and then afterwards you're hired for another e-commerce project, then I think that's good qualifications. Maybe not for the most difficult of questions, but like at least like, for like regular SEO stuff. However, if somebody has like, I don't know, 5 years of experience, but has never managed or does not have any e-commerce experience or whatsoever, then it's also like, I don't know, kind of different. So I would always ask for specifically what industries the person has worked for, like B2C, B2B, and then you can kind of see, okay, where, does the experience match what you're looking for.
SEO is so broad, isn't it? It's very specific to one's needs. That's why I say the industry best standard, it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
If you accompany it with something else, it should never be a case of this is the checklist and everything should fit to this checklist, because it depends on so many things. And I think as we're maturing as an industry, specific considerations for the brand's needs will come into place, and I think that would almost trump the industry best standards type of rhetoric we see, because a lot of the information that brands are aware of comes from SEO. Come from SEOs. So, for example, the rhetoric of it takes 6 months to show results. That's true in certain cases. In other cases, it could take a lot longer. It might take quicker in other cases. So it's very much dependent on where the brand is and what the state of SEO is for that brand. Stakeholders, they have this idea that SEO, once I hire the SEO, that will be all my problems solved. And they almost, like, as you mentioned earlier, in fact, actually, they almost see it as they hire the SEO and then that's their job done. Talk some more on what stakeholders should expect once they've made the decision to hire an SEO. So they're convinced that they should invest in SEO and have made that decision to invest in it. What should they expect from that point?
I know this very well. I think sometimes there's this thing where you think like the SEO consultant is gonna come in, do a little magic like behind the curtain, and then nothing's really gonna change, but everything's gonna change, so I think like if you made the decision, and then you should expect the like a good SEO consultant, I think, will ask a lot of questions. I will ask about your marketing goals. I will ask about your personas. I will go and create those personas with you if you don't have them. Like, I will go like deep into strategy. I might, like, it's SEO is not something that you just add on top of your like marketing mix. Like, it's something that can affect like the architecture of your website, like the actual content of your pages, and so it can very well happen that I go in and my recommendations are actually kind of like, in some cases, quite kind of big changes to the website, and then you should be prepared then to you should expect this, and then also be open to it.
Do you find that clients tends to needs to make big bold changes or small iterations, or is it a mixture of both sometimes?
I mean, I think it really depends. So recently I've done it really depends on what happened with the website up until the point where I came in. So recently I've worked with a client where I came in with the audit and I actually found like, hey, the previous like web developer, they've done a really good job. Like we don't like the structure of the website is cool. Like we just need to focus on like creating more SEO optimized content for the blog, or like making some content changes on the landing pages. And that's like really cool. Like it's really, because then I can really like during the time that I work with that client, I can actually see results because the foundation is already there.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I sometimes have websites where I can just see there's like major, I don't know, indexation issues, for example, because of I don't know, redirect things that they've done in the past, or pagination issues and stuff like that. And there, it's like more difficult, because then while we're fixing the foundation, like that takes a bit longer time. And so I think there's a while where they don't see the improvements in rankings from my work, because we're working on the fundamentals, but they've worked with me for a time, and so it's like, like what is actually happening, and how can I prove that this is useful, and so so that's a challenge. Like I think it really depends on the client and how the website has evolved in the past.
Yeah, I find that brands, they have this idea that SEO, the requirement for SEO, or the expectation, I should say, of SEO is that it makes progress, right? And it adds to what's already there. So more traffic to the site. That's the goal.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's actually better to look at it in terms of SEO is preventing my site from worsening. And what you mentioned there just made me think about that, because a lot of the times brands SEO will regress, and only then they see the value of SEO, right? Whereas when SEO is maintaining their current level of traffic, they don't think, oh, SEO is helping me. They think SEO is not working. Let's cut it, for example. And if they were to do that, they then see their traffic tank, and they're worse off position. So sometimes prevention is better than letting things work, because this is there's never a state where SEO is done. It's always a moving thing. As long as you have a website, right, it's a continuous movement of ensuring that you grow and maintain growth.
Yes, and I think people sometimes, or they don't know, they forget that it's so easy to lose rankings and lose traffic, Like I've had a project where we launched a website, and we had like within a couple of months we had like a really surprising I mean, not surprising, we'd been working towards it, but it was surprising how quickly, like once the rankings were there, it was like amazing. We had like top 5 rankings for competitive keywords, and traffic kept coming in. But then it was kind of like cool, like the client was like, okay, cool, we've done this, like yay, check, move on to other things. And I was like, we should continue working on this, like we can't just leave it now. So I think people forget that you can also lose rankings, and and also kind of it's also about not always like more traffic, but also like better traffic. Sometimes when I talk to clients and I have done keyword research, and of course they always go for the keywords that have the highest search volume. I mean, that's you want to have the most traffic for your efforts. But then I sometimes point out keywords that might only have like 100 a month, or I mean even the keywords that are like 50 or 10 a month, it's like neglectable often. But if those keywords are super like a perfect match for like that's exactly the target audience that you want. Like somebody, you're I don't know, I'm always like can't think of examples, but if you're offering like shoe repairs for I don't know, and then somebody is like Googling, I need a shoe repair service, like that's a highly, like those people are going to convert, and so like those are really relevant keywords, even though they might not have the highest search volume. It's also like about improving the kind of like the quality of the traffic that you get on your websites. Yeah. People can probably think of a better example.
No, I think that works. Shoe repair in Berlin. So you offer shoe repair services in Berlin.
Yeah.
And someone in Berlin is searching for shoe repair services in Berlin. That is the type of traffic that you want. Absolutely. Now let's move on to SEO in 2023 and beyond.
Okay.
Where would you say you see SEO headed?
That's a very good question.
It's getting more complex, isn't it?
It's definitely getting more complex, and I think that, basically I just see all of the things that we already know, like the development of less and less talking about keywords, more and more like search intent, really like writing like content that is a really good fit for your target group. I just see that like continuing. And also I think Google is like, that's a development that has that's not a new development, but the like amount of rich results that you see in the search results that has improved steadily, and I think that that's something that if it wasn't already on the radar should be on the radar, and so
would you say you prefer like personally, do you prefer the simpler days of SEO, let's say 10 years ago, versus the more complex, the complexities of it now, and probably the way it's going to continue?
That's a good question. I think I do prefer it now, because now I think that as Google has developed, when you look at the algorithm that was like 10 years ago, or when Google started, where it was the number of backlinks, and it has improved in a direction where like the differences between SEO and usability and content and strategy, like it's all kind of like blending together more and more, and that makes my job more interesting for me. Like I don't have to think about, like it's less thinking about, oh, what kind of like internal linking hack can I deploy, or like what kind of like, how can I trick the algorithm? Like that's not that's long gone. And so now it's more about really thinking about the target group and really working together with the other departments. So I do prefer it now.
I have to say I prefer it now as well, even though it's more complex. I think it's gotten more interesting, I would say. The simpler times of yesteryears is cool sometimes to think back to it, but I do prefer the complexities of it myself. You mentioned link building a moment ago. I'm curious, have you, throughout your career, or at some point in your career, have you carried out link building in Germany? The reason I ask this is because I've worked for an international clients before, several international clients, and when it came to Germany, that market was always difficult when it comes to link building. What's your take on link building in Germany?
I must say, when my first job as SEO, when I worked for the e-commerce company, we did link building in Germany. I always found it tough. I think our success rate was not very high when we really like set out to. We sent emails and we did like campaigns and then tried to, it was tough.
Yeah.
But I don't have enough of a comparison with other countries that I can say. I always just assumed that was normal. And I think then after I stopped working at that company, actually link building got a little bit. I think I neglected it for a long time because I thought, well, it's all about creating good content and then the links will come, Now I've refocused back on it because I do think it's still like important, and there are a lot of things that you can do to actively like encourage people to link to your good content. But yeah, I must say I don't have enough comparison to other countries that I can really say if it's tougher in Germany or not.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was just curious about it because compared to the UK and even the US as well, Germany was always a difficult market. It was either a case of you had people who simply didn't want to link, and or you had people who wanted a shit ton of money for a link. I think Germany was one of the first markets where websites understood the value of a link, and they simply wanted money for it. Just plain and simple. And it was very direct, like, or if you don't mind me saying, it was very German. And it was like, yes, this is how much I want for this. And yeah, it was always a challenging market, which made for interesting times.
I apologize for that. I can imagine, but actually, like that reminds me. I worked on a website. It was also German, but they had. I noticed during the audit that they had like automatically no followed every external link on their website, and then I went to them and I was like, this is technically not going to benefit your SEO, but I think it's really bad practice. Can you change that? It's not very nice. Yeah, so.
Did they change it?
Yeah, they did.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
What would you say frustrates clients or a brand about the SEO industry?
Well, so what I've heard when I talk to clients is that it can be frustrating for them if they're presented with like a list of measures that they should implement that they don't understand. And also when somebody comes in and I think it's on us, SEO consultant, to also come in and even though we know more about SEO, to not show a certain like arrogance towards the developer, the marketing, like all the people that have worked with the website before. And so I can understand if somebody comes in and is like, you've been doing everything wrong. Here's how it's done right. Not valuing their expertise at all. I can understand how that can be frustrating. And I do think that in our industry there are consultants like that.
Yeah. It's a thing where I've noticed with SEOs, we can be, unless we're conscious of it, we can be quite negative at times. And I think it comes down to the way we think, right? Because we're geared towards thinking of results, solutions, right? But in order to provide a solution, we first have to find a problem or the problem. So a tech audit, for example, we have issues and then we'll have solutions, right? And sometimes we can almost get stuck in the issues part of that cycle of process, where we just look at an issue and get really disgusted by it and say like, this shouldn't be an issue, whereas we don't consider why it's an issue in the first place. And that's something I think we need to work. I think that goes into a bigger discussion into the way we communicate and also the way we work on our soft skills. I think SEOs we tend to focus very much on all the hard skills type of thinking, like tactics, even strategy. Like they're all based on hard skills, and tends to spend less time on soft skills, which is an unfortunate thing for us.
I fully agree. Like you need to have like empathy, and you need to be able to communicate. Because otherwise you'll get in tricky situations. You also want to make sure that the people who've worked on the website you don't present their team lead a list of mistakes that they've made in the past. Like that's not kind. That's not like, they're gonna hate you for that. You want to always like value and appreciate everybody's expertise that they brought into, and also like understand the reasons why people implemented things the way they did, and always be a bit more on the finding opportunities instead of finding problems.
Exactly.
Kind of focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you would say personally frustrates you about the industry?
Yeah. I think that sometimes, I think it is changing a bit, but when I started, it was, for example, I was the only at that company we worked with, I worked for, we had like a network of all the SEO managers that worked for companies in that under the parent company, and so we were like networked there, and I was the only woman, and that could be like sometimes a bit challenging. And I do think that sometimes SEO tended to be like I don't know, like a bit of a
boys club?
You want to be a boys club, right? Like where you were like really cool if you could like say like, yeah, I did this and I look at what I've done. And I've actually heard people I've actually heard like there were a lot of like sexist comments also in all of our group chats and stuff like that, and so that's frustrating. But I think I've been really lucky in that I've found networks. There's, for example, also like a network for women in technical SEO. I can also send you the link afterwards, but I think you know about it, right? Yeah, right. So I've actually found like clients because I'm listed there, and that's just really like nice. Like whenever a client like has found me through that network, because then it shows like they care about like I don't know, maybe supporting more women in a very technical field. And I also work for I'm a regular consultant for an agency in the US that is led by women, and so I think I've been very fortunate to find like my niche in the industry. But and I hope that those spaces kind of grow so that eventually it won't be, maybe we won't have to have a list of like women in technical SEO, because it's just made itself redundant because the industry has changed.
So, I would say men listening would say they don't feel it's a boys' club, and that's probably because they're a part of it, and it's almost a thing where they might need to step out to look within to see it. What would you say to someone who should have a bit more of an awareness of these sort of dynamics?
So I would say that when you want to increase the diversity in your team, or generally like break up those structures, it's not like it's not like a passive process where you're like, well, I'm welcoming everybody. I'm like, it's not an attitude. You can't just say, well, the door is open, people are not walking through it. Like, how's that? Like, I think it's very active. Like, a lot of work goes into making something a welcoming environment. You have to be very explicit about it. You have to announce it in a way that people hear it, and because that will then attract people, give people like a feeling like, okay, there's somebody who understands and is supportive, and yeah, because in a lot of cases, I think what happens is that not a lot of people, like when they come into a space, let's say I go to, I don't know, a meetup, and I come and I'm like, it's like all like men, or, then, and they don't make an active effort to like make me feel welcome, like I'll just maybe not show up again, and they won't know. Like, people, like, if your spaces are not like actively welcoming, then people will just leave quietly, and you don't, and then you're left like, well, the door is open, but then that's not enough.
Right.
So that's like the message that I would give somebody.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant message. Is it Germany or France? It might be the European Union who has this like rule or something in place where, well, two things. One, if a male is elected as leadership, the next time around there has to be a female. And the second thing is there's a balance that's required, so they can't be it's something like 51-49 at all points, at all times. So they can't be more than 51% of male in leadership roles, for example, and or 51% of females in leadership role. I think that sort of thing, I'm not usually a fan of these sort of like metrics in place, but I think those sort of things is appropriate in such cases. And yeah, I think having that sort of thing from a brand point of view will be ideal.
Yeah, it's true.
Tina, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. And you can also find me, like, if you want to contact me, you can find more information on my website. It is tinareis.online.
I'll have those links in the description for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Tina. Have a brilliant day.
Thank you.
And we'll catch up again soon.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye now.
Cheers.